All right, we are live. This is interview number 2. I'm very, very excited on Board Game Binge, where we try to bring you new, interesting content that is consumable, little bite-sized chunks where you can learn about everyone's passion, which is, of course, board games. How are they made? How are they developed? How they get to market? Or just quite frankly, how do you enjoy it with other people? Today, we've got two very, very special guests. We've got Corey Keller, who's the developer of the Latte Throwdown game, as well as Richard MacRae from Analog Studios, who is the publisher of this game. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Before I get started, I got to tell you, I got my little cappuccino, or my little espresso here. I don't have a latte, unfortunately. There's no milk in the office here. I got my backup coffee for when that runs out, and of course some water when I get myself dehydrated. So I thought, in terms of just the theme of the latte, what better way to talk about lattes while actually drinking coffee ourselves? So I got to say, this kicked off, I believe it was on Tuesday, was when your Kickstarter launched, right? Day one, you guys hit your target. How does it feel to kind of get that little check mark that, done it on day one?
Man, yeah, it felt great. I was stressing out pretty much all day from the minute we hit launch. I was at work, but I couldn't really focus on work because I just kept refreshing that Kickstarter page over and over again and just kind of freaking out sharing it. But man, yeah, 11 hours and 12 minutes.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a slow clap moment, I think. That was awesome. I just want to, again, say to people who are watching, Corey's got this awesome rig. When we first kind of linked in, I was like, wow, I kind of feel like a little bit of a Padawan. He's kind of the Jedi. The Padawan's interviewing the Jedi here. But you do podcasting. You actually do game podcasting.
I do, yes. Yeah, I've been doing podcasting for a little bit. I mean, we've kind of taken a little bit of a break just with the whole, when COVID and all that stuff started. We kind of had to, change up our schedules a little bit. But we ended season 1 on a board game review podcast that I have called Meeples and Mishaps, where we find just the most outrageous games that are either rated absolutely terrible on BGG or they're just very offensive in their themes. We just kind of break them down and talk about why they were made or why they were rated terribly. And then I also have a live Dungeons and Dragons podcast that we do.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So you're a gamer. This is a passion. It's not just, hey, this guy's a barista that just happened to kind of have an idea while he was doing coffee one day. This is something that's been a passion of yours, and you've kind of brought these two things, I guess, together then, have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been a gamer since, I was a little kid sitting in my room playing Zelda all day. And then, yeah, coffee's the second biggest passion that I have. And I've been in coffee for many years now. And it just fit perfectly. I always drink coffee when I play games and just had to merge them together.
Now, is this a game that how did you come up with the idea? Like, where did the whole concept of, because this is a dice drafting game, I guess is the best way to describe it, right? For people who aren't familiar with, kind of some of the gaming tech terminology, dice drafting is essentially you have dice, you roll them, you're picking from the dice to reach a certain objective. Yahtzee is kind of the classic kind of, beginning example of a dice drafting game. Everything's kind of built from there. So what kind of led you to that, to create this dice drafting and then get into this as kind of a concept as a whole?
Absolutely. Kind of funny story there, because I was not setting out to make a coffee themed game.
Okay.
So a couple years ago, I challenged myself for 1 year to design a game every 3 months that was fully playable. Most times when you're developing a game, you take your time. It can take several years before it's like, all right, this is like good to go. But I was like, you know what? I want to really step up my design skills. So I said, all right, for 3 months, every 3 months for a year, I have to design a new game. Now, the catch that I gave myself was I don't get to pick what that game's about. So at the beginning of every 3 months, I actually put out a survey on my social media. And I said, all right, here's a list of 12 themes. Here's a list of 12 mechanics. And you can choose either a small game, medium-sized game, or like a heavy sprawling game. And so at the start of every one of those, I just set those surveys out on social media and I let the people decide. And so this just happened to be the third game in that series. They put it out. Coffee won the theme. I mean, I had a bunch of other crazy theme ideas, and then dice drafting won the theme. And so I was like, and a mid-sized game is what won the theme there. And so I was like, all right, here I go. And so for the next 3 months, I just worked every day on it. And that's kind of how I came up with the game. It was just I didn't set out to make the coffee game. It's just one of those perfect things that happened.
So so did you have the mechanics worked out first, and then like that game is kind of designed, and then you thought, okay, now what kind of theme can I add to this? Or was it as you're kind of building, you're like, ooh, this could kind of be coffee themed, and like, how did those kind of two things mesh?
Absolutely. So, so when they said, when the coffee theme worked, I was like, okay, first thing I did was I searched the internet. All right, what kind of coffee games are out there? And surprisingly, there was maybe 2 coffee games that I found out there. One's about roasting coffee, and one's about like serving a small cafe patrons, like taking orders and making those orders kind of thing.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, I'm heavily involved in the coffee culture. Latte art throwdowns are a thing that we are heavily involved with. I've competed in the latte art competition. I was like, that would kind of be a really cool twist to kind of shed a light on that part of coffee culture.
Yeah.
And just to introduce that to people. And it's something that I'm relatively, involved in, and it's very competitive. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'm going with. And, with dice drafting, when I first originally designed the game, it was very take that gotcha kind of mechanics, very competitive, cutthroat. But as we soon found out that just makes the game take way too long, and a lot of people kind of got angry when they played it.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in a family that was quite competitive playing games. Actually, still are. And I always find I prefer playing with friends actually than family, because family sometimes becomes personal.
Oh yeah, brutal.
But I find I've gravitated more towards, and this is what I mean. I locked in on this game like a laser when I saw the concept of it. It just ticks off all the boxes that I personally look for in a game. It's 20 minutes, a half hour, anything under an hour is kind of where now that I've got kids and so forth, is something I gravitate towards. I play a lot of board games at meetups. So because you're socializing with people, you want to get through 2-3 games in a night. Mm-hmm. So shorter games are always better. I love tournament style games. So if you can do a game that's like in 20 minutes and okay, let's do another one. Now let's do best of 3 or, best of 5. I love dice drafting games. So this is just like check. It have like literally everything, right? So I'm proud to say I was the first backer actually on this.
Oh, awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
I was backer number 1. Right on that button.
That is awesome.
So I got in there quick. So I was very proud and very happy to back that. So congratulations on that. Talk to me about the artwork, because I got to tell you, when I see different board games and especially games that are done on Kickstarter, you see a lot of, cartoon type imagery, or you'll see a lot of kind of classic kind of painting, or then you get into like miniatures and D&D and that kind of design. But this is really kind of unique in terms of like, I almost feel like I can pick those coffee beans up off that board. Like the design is stunning. Like it really is beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let Richard kind of take over some of this too, but before he kind of says something,
sure.
When I originally kind of had the idea in my head, I was like, we have to.
Did we lose him? We lost Corey. All right, over to Richard. Talk to us about the artwork.
I mean, I could actually shed a good amount of light on this side. Corey actually came to us with a complete prototype with artwork. So he did the foundation part of the artwork, in the sense of he found these beautiful latte art patterns. He had a concept for the scoreboard, as you see at the top, is like chalk marks, like a chalk slate in a coffee shop, and the same with the barista cards. So he had a lot of that already conceptually delivered. It was very dark. The board itself was very dark and kind of looked more like a bar inside or something.
Okay.
So we took that though, and we gave it to Michael Christopher, who's been with us, helping us with Centrix, Gnomes at Midnight, On Point, King of Indecision, a lot of our games. And we sort of said, we need something lighter, but we definitely have to bring out the coffee theme. And it was Michael who brought out this idea that these beans should be spilled out onto a wooden block counter.
Yeah.
And then came up with the logo as well, of course, because that's pretty, that color scheme piece is really important.
Oh, I love it. It's great.
Used everywhere. And so he took it kind of to the end of where we wanted it to be, as a bright, beautiful, very bold and noticeable piece of artwork, really.
Now I noticed that like when you look at it, it almost looks like there's, and I don't know if it's in the design or if they're actually cutouts. Like, so is there, like, is it a double layered board where it like the pieces recess into it, or like where you look at the dice? I'm not sure if you did a great job in the shadowing or what, but it literally looks like these things fit in like grooves, right?
Michael is incredibly talented, and he can do stuff like that with Photoshop. So it's completely flat, but it really does look 3D. So that's Michael's job. Yeah.
When we get Corey back on, I did see a comment from Mike Bruno asking if we can get a podcast link for his Meeples and Mishaps. So maybe when he comes back on, for anybody listening, I'll make sure I get a link to that, and I'll actually drop that into the comment base on the actual video here. But I got to tell you, it's interesting how these things come together, and hopefully he joins us back. If not, we can continue on the publisher side, because I got a zillion questions on that as well, as I always do. How did you guys meet? So how did you guys kind of come together? Like, where'd you find him? Were you just getting a coffee one day and hey, by the way, I've made a game? Like,
we haven't made it a secret that we accept submissions from designers, so it's known. It's on our website. He actually found us because we registered in Cardboard Edison. So I guess because we're analog game studios, we kind of fall to the top of the list.
Yeah, the letters.
And, so he sent us a sell sheet, a bit of a concept for what his game was about. And I said, this does look interesting. I'd like to review it. So he sent all the rest of it, the rule book and everything.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for me to realize that this is a very cool game because it's so unique. There's no one else who's done something like this. And it fits our under an hour, fast, fun family.
So that's a good kind of segue into how does someone like a developer. So say there's a person out there that maybe sees this, this interview, and they've got a great idea for a game, and they're maybe not knowing beyond creating a game how to get it to market, the artwork, all the things that like a developer or publisher is going to help with. How do they find somebody? Obviously, we'll put your contact information down here if that's okay with you. If somebody wants to send a submission, we'll put the link in there. Sure. But how do they find someone like yourself?
Most of them do find us from our website simply. So we get game submissions through our contact form. But Cardboard Edison has been another way. We've had other game submissions, and we pre-COVID used to attend a lot of Snakes and Lattes and other playtest type events. Sure. And we would discover games there as well.
So have you found, like, I imagine with the submission model, you're going to get more games submitted than you're obviously going to take, right?
Yeah.
How do you weed through the pack? What are some of the things that you're looking for when you choose whether, okay, this is something analog is going to get behind it or they're not?
Right. There's very simply, it's got to be under an hour. It's got to be family, fun, and friendly. It's got to be really, really unique. There's got to be something that's exceptionally unusual about your game. So just to give you an idea, a couple of days ago, I had to turn down a game. I think the fellow was from Malaysia. He had a great game. It was brilliant. It was very, very cleverly done. The mechanic was excellent. But there's 500 football or soccer games. And so for us to try to market that and differentiate it becomes extremely difficult. So we look for something that's really, really unique and that's going to be open to really interesting art interpretation.
Now, do you try to find people that are, I imagine you bring a lot of expertise to the table, obviously, right? So there's going to be sometimes, I guess, a game where someone might have the mechanic of the game is really interesting or really works. But in terms of the theme, and the most recent example I can think of is pirates, right? So if you go on Kickstarter right now, I think there's like 3 pirate games that all launched in the same week.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for each of those developers because they all look like really, really good games. But now anybody that's interested in a pirate game where you're going and collecting resources and opening up treasure chests and going to another port and to another port, you've got 3 options to choose from, all at the same time, right? So I imagine someone like yourself, where if one of those people had come to you, would you suggest or recommend they come with some flexibility to say, hey, let me kind of work with you on this, and maybe we might have to reskin it under a different theme or find some different hook that maybe gives it a better chance of success.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was actually the specific example I gave to the fellow from Malaysia who had this soccer game, right? I said, well, I'll look at it. I wouldn't publish it as a soccer game, but if it has something that I can turn it into some other type of theme, and it was just too difficult. It was just so soccer. So I had to turn it down. But yeah, actually the pirate example is a good one. I love the pirate theme.
Yeah, me too.
I would never publish a pirate game because it's just been overdone so much.
There's so many of them out there. Exactly.
Yeah.
Gosh. And in terms of backing, so you're active on Kickstarter. Obviously, I know you've backed games that I've done as well. Likewise, I've backed some of your games. How important is the Kickstarter community and integrating into that community? So again, from a perspective of someone new coming in to do a Kickstarter maybe for the first time, what are some pieces of advice you'd have for these people as they're kind of coming in with naked eyes into this, this whole thing?
Yeah, there's a community. There's an entire culture actually around it. Most backers that you'll receive are going to be backers of other games before. So about 90% of your backers will have backed a Kickstarter before. So that's how critical it is to get those people interested. Now, most people on Kickstarter are really quite hardcore gamers. It's quite unusual for us, a little indie, more family, more mass market type publisher, to do well in that environment. But you can, if you've got something interesting and unique that these gamers also like. So something that would be a filler game or a game that they maybe would play with their families. So I'll tell you an example. We published a ballet board game and brought that in. It was finished up in November last year. And if you ask me, well, who were most of the backers to that particular project, I would say they were men who had daughters in dance or who had daughters who loved ballet. And so they were a lot of hardcore gamers, but they just knew that this was a good game that they could play with their daughter.
Yeah, exactly. That actually reminds me, we got Mike Bruner's actually on watching this link. Hey, Mike. Queen Bee's a good example of that. All right, so I saw the Queen Bee game, and right away I'm like, wow, my brother's a beekeeper. This would make a great gift. Even this is if I want to get him to sit down and play a game with me. Chances are he's going to play a game that has something to do with something he's passionate about too, right? So I think maybe those are some of the hooks or some of the avenues you got to try to find, because it is such a huge pool of people that are all kind of coming at the same time. I don't like to say that you necessarily are competing against other games, because I think there's something out there for everybody, right? So someone who loves draft dice games might not like D&D, or vice versa, or they might like there's people that like the classic style games, or or take something even like a Dixit, where you're trying to guess pitchers and so forth, and try to social deduction type games. There's something for everybody out there. So typically when I've talked to different developers, most try to say, I'm just going to try to find the people that'll be interested in this particular concept, that are going to like this particular game, and I'm not necessarily going to get worried about the noise of the other games that are kind of around at the same time, because I think there's enough for everybody, but you still got to find your patch of grass, so to speak, right? You got to find those people that are gonna hook in. So welcome back, Corey.
I apologize. My power went out and then kicked back on. So
he's back.
Yeah, that was fun.
This is just like a 20-minute just lead into you, right? This is just the anticipation building. So along that kind of thought track, how have you guys tried to carve out, or how have you, because I agree, the games that don't have miniatures, the games that are more family based, much tougher to kind of get those huge crowds. What have you guys done to reach that crowd within Kickstarter? And then outside of Kickstarter, how have you kind of tried to get your message out and reach your hands out?
Richard, you go first. You have a better idea on that.
I might be a bit simplistic in my answer. But I would say that coffee is just so ubiquitous. Who doesn't like coffee, right? Well, 90% of the world probably does.
Yeah.
So right away, that's a huge hook for this particular game.
Now, are you guys going to eventually like approach coffee shops? Like, it seems like it'd be a natural fit for
exactly
down, sipping coffee, you know, having my espresso, playing a game of dice drafting with you know, a fellow colleague who likes games, maybe a quick game we can crank out over coffee and then kind of get it on with our day. Is this kind of something you look at either selling or have coffee shops have available for people to play while you know, while people are sipping away?
Yeah, that was my, after I'd reviewed the game that Corey sent me, the prototype, I started to then think about, okay, how's this thing going to sell? Where is it going to sell? And that's exactly it. There's 14,000 Starbucks in the United States. There's 1,500 in Canada. They sell gifts, right? There's independent coffee shops. There was even a backer early on in this Kickstarter who said, hey, I own a coffee shop. This would be so exciting. I'm backing it because I want to have it on the shelf for people to play when they come to my coffee shop. So exactly, that was very much an important aspect of this particular game.
So Corey, I'm going to share my screen here real quick. I want to get over to the, if I can find it, your actual Kickstarter campaign. It'd be cool, I think, even to maybe you could have some people you can walk us through a little bit about what the offer is. So if there is anybody that's looking at, you know, jumping in and backing this campaign as I have done, and as I'm sure a lot of other people have done, kind of take us through it. You know, right off the top, for anybody that is considering backing this campaign and wondering if there's a risk of it not funding, you've already hit your target. As we said at the beginning of this call, congratulations again. You've almost doubled your target, which is amazing, given that you still have 21 days to go. And quite frankly, I think you're probably on track, at least a 3 or 4 time factor of your target. So awesome, awesome work. But what do people get? So at the top, we got the video, which is pretty cool, explains the game. Take us through it.
Yeah, the video, wonderfully done, great animation. Richard found a great company to work with, and you know, they did a great job of laying out how to play the game. So it gives you the video gives you a quick little overview of what the game is all about. You know, we went for simplicity. We went for the casual gamer. I mean, this is a gateway game. You know, we believe that, you know, gaming is important. It's a great way to spend time with family and friends. And so we wanted that game for that. And so, yeah, like he said, you know, this video is very well done. It's 2 to 4 players, which is great. Great for, yeah, you know, couples, great for small families, having another couple over for dinner time, you know, or just hanging out in a coffee shop. Exactly 20 minutes, perfect time for a game. And it's super easy to learn, takes less than 5 minutes to learn, and you've already got it by your first turn, which is great. You know, that's an important thing for people jumping into a game, because I know most people, they kind of back out if it takes longer than 10 minutes to explain the game to them. They don't think
one on my shelf that we opened up once, and after 45 minutes of trying to read through the instructions and do the setup, I was gonna play with my kids, and the kids are on their iPhones and they're checked out, and I'm just like, okay, let's just pack this back up.
Yeah. We'll try this later
for a rainy day, and it's never been opened again, right? So that's cool.
Absolutely. Same thing with this board. You know, beautiful art. Kind of like I'm sure Richard explained, we went more for some of the realism, not so much of the cartoony, but it's laid out in a way to where you immediately understand this game once you lay that board out. Okay, these circles I'm going to lay these circle latte cards there. And all of these, which is great, is all of these latte arts on these cards are actual latte arts that you can pour. Baristas pour these. They do these in competitions. I can do about half of these.
I was going to ask you, because I saw this and I'm like, there's no way you got a butterfly like that in your coffee. But
no, yeah, all these are doable. Fun fact also, the latte art on the cover of the box is one that I actually poured, and we took a picture of and incorporated that into the art of the cover of the box. Yeah. So that was poured in my coffee shop.
How many coffees you have to pour to get that down? Like, is there a
luckily I'm now where I can
for pouring lattes or what?
I mean, yeah, we go through a strict, like, you know, 1 month training of doing latte art with our employees at our shop. And believe it or not, YouTube is a great place to learn how to do some techniques and skills. But yeah, all that art on the latte cards is doable by baristas. You can ask any barista that does latte art. They're like, oh yeah, I could do that, or I can get close to doing that, or it is possible. So we wanted the realism in there. We could have gone super fantasy and crazy latte arts in there, but we wanted it to be believable, and we wanted that to be something that's presentable.
Yeah, just when you had checked out there for a second, I was talking to Richard, and I was saying just these beans and like the detail on this board is like, it's photorealistic. It's unbelievable. I actually thought that these were cutouts because you have the way he did the shading down here and these little dice placements. It almost looks like cutouts. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great, and you can tell on those it's like a latte. You have the dark coffee at the bottom and the cream at the top.
So the general idea is you're drafting dice. It goes the first person to 20 points, I guess, wins the game.
That's correct, yeah.
And you're achieving these little lattes, I guess. You're trying to finish the lattes, and as you finish the lattes, you're then scoring those points. Each latte option, these different types of lattes all have numbers on them, which indicate, I guess, the points that you get if you can complete that latte. And then I think when I was watching on the video, it was saying just as soon as you hit 20, the game's done. So there's no kind of final round turn or anything like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a race to the finish. First one to hit it, done. No one last turn, nothing like that. So it really keeps that momentum of I got to get there first before someone else does, because there's no last chance. It's once you get there, it's done.
And then if it's 2 players, then they only deal 3 spots, I guess is my understanding.
Yeah, 3 latte cards for 2 players. Okay. 3 to 4, you do all 4 latte spaces.
Got it. Nice. It'd be kind of neat if at some time in the future, almost like an additional rule sheet, if somebody wants to do like a solo version of a game. I know a solo version game's coming on. Maybe it's something you've probably already thought of.
I'm glad you bring that up. For all of you interested in backing this game, I have currently, developed a solo variant for this game. I'm actually sending the rules to Richard probably tonight. So we can verify that before we put it out into the world. But it plays really good. It's actually a little harder solo, which is good because the solo players like some difficulty to it. But yes, it will be solo. So for all you people who want a solo game, there is a solo version for this.
Oh, wow. So you just actually got another game for the price of one game. That's awesome.
Yep.
So it comes with the dice. I noticed that your stretch targets, your standard kind of plastic meeples turn into or player pieces turn into cutout meeples. They're in the shape, I guess, of pitchers. Is that kind of what the general idea does? So, and you've already hit that target, right?
Yes, we did. We hit that today. Yeah, and there'll be custom meeples in the shape of milk pitchers that you use to pour lattes.
That's cool. And then congratulations on the animation again, Richard. As soon as I saw this, I was like, wow. Is there a tabletop simulator version of this? Is this just straight animation, or is this pulled from tabletop?
No, that's straight animation. We don't have a tabletop simulator on it, no. Yeah,
I'm sure one will show up soon.
It's not that hard to do, but we were quite focused just on the Kickstarter campaign. We could probably whip that up actually pretty quickly.
That's awesome. Of course, you got a lot of the industry guys that have already reviewed this game, and all the reviews are very, very positive. So
yes,
the last thing I want to say is that the shipping I actually noticed is very, very low cost, which was pretty amazing. That's down there at the bottom. So in Canada, your shipping costs $11 to get your game. If somebody buys 2 games, is it the same shipping cost, or does it go up slightly a little bit, or?
It goes up slightly. What is it? Canada. So it's 18.
Save a couple bucks.
Oh, it's 18. This is your shipping cost right here. Gotcha. So you save a couple bucks if you do a couple different games.
Yeah.
It's still fairly cheap. Even the US, $8 US to get the game is more than reasonable. Fly right back up to your pledge at the top. So the cost is $34. Canadian, that's roughly 24, 25 bucks US for this game. Again, I was surprised. I imagine when this hits retail, it's probably going to be a lot more than that. That's my guess.
Yeah, well, one thing that we also like to do for our Kickstarters is we give our Kickstarter backers a price break. We always have higher MSRP costs for retail than we do on our Kickstarters.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. Before, I know we've taken up a lot of your time. I just got one more question for you, Corey. In this whole process, and I know it's congrats again, because it's a stressful journey, especially that first day. The advice that you'll always read about Kickstarters is clear your schedule. Even if you think that, I'll just check it here and there, clear your schedule, because you will not be able to think about anything but that day, about that game, except for hitting your target, at least until you get it. So you guys got there. So good for you. What's the biggest learning you would say you've had during this whole process, and something that you could maybe advise other people looking to do Kickstarters or doing their own game development? What's something you would say to them in terms of how they should approach this?
Absolutely. The biggest advice I would give is don't rush it. So many people just want to rush to get their game on Kickstarter, and the sad thing is they'll rush to get the game on Kickstarter and then fail and then take it personally, and that can be, you know, really heart-wrenching for the first time. But as far as like game design, get your thoughts out on paper quick when you're designing a game. Don't just keep it in your mind. Get it on paper. Create your little prototype as fast as you can and start testing things out, and then take your time from there.
A lot of people think you have to go fancy. Did you literally use just little pieces of paper when you're?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like
index cards. I cut out index cards. I hand drew the board when I first did this board. I hand drew it out. I taped 4 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper together, drew the board out, drew all the squares, found random dice from other games. It does not have to look pretty. You have to test it first, play it over and over again, and then you can worry about prettying it up. Yeah.
Anybody can make a game with the resources they have around them. It does not have to. And a lot of people I've talked to like, oh, you know, gosh, you've made a game. I can never do that. I don't know where I would begin and find all these suppliers. And get the game down first. And you can do that with the materials you find at your local dollar store. Even game pieces you can get for cents at your dollar store. So
absolutely.
And then Rich, I'll throw the same question over to you, but more a little bit of a spin. If someone does do a Kickstarter and they fail, what's your advice for them?
Learn from the mistake and do it again. Don't give up. Just go at it again.
And you've had experience with that. You've had games that didn't fund the first time, right?
Yeah.
And you came back at it and you crushed it, right? So just because you don't hit a target doesn't mean it's not a good game. It doesn't mean there's not an audience for it. It just means you got to retweak your approach a little bit and find a better way to get to that audience. And once you do that, you'd be amazed at the results. So, gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if anybody is watching this, there were some questions that were kind of coming through on the chat. One is, can you give us the name of your podcast once again, how people can find that podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can find these podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever your podcasts are, you can find it. The first one is Homebrew Adventures. That is the live D&D podcast.
Yep.
And the second one is Meeples and Mishaps. And you can find all those Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you can listen to podcasts.
I love it. I'll be signed up for that second one for sure. That sounds like a real blast. And then Richard, if there's somebody out there that has a game they think the world needs to see, they're looking for a publisher and they want you to take a quick look, how best would they get that to you?
Go to our website, find the form in the contacts page, and introduce yourself.
And the website is?
analoggamestudios.com.
Perfect. So I'll put both of those contacts in the link to this Facebook live chat. So if anybody does want to look for that, follow the links below. And again, guys, congratulations. That was an amazing, amazing start to your Kickstarter.
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to see how it ends, and I can't wait to get my game. I'm pumped.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for being number one, and thanks for having us on The Binge.
Hey, no worries. Take care.